Welcome to another episode of the CaliCast. I'm your host, Gron. I'm joined by my co-host, Sheikh Tariq, and our special guest for today, Omar Ashmawey. How are you doing, Omar?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. I saw something interesting last night.
We're going to jump right into it.
Obviously.
Oh, wow.
People can't wait,
You're
Low
the
attention
smartest,
spans.
the analogy where sometimes you try to do something new in Islam, it's a little bit difficult, but think of it like jumping in a pool.
I remember
Right?
that. You're right.
First,
You're
you get cold a little bit, but after a few seconds, it feels nice.
All right,
Exactly.
hey,
We're
let's
just
do it.
jumping right into it.
I thought there'd be some appetizers,
I still don't know how to do appetizers yet. I'm still new.
Okay, let's do it. We'll jump right in.
Last night, on my YouTube recommendation, I got like one of those videos where like a non-Muslim critiques or like what he thinks about Islam.
Right.
Some famous non-Muslim. And obviously, at first, by seeing how he was and people he was around with, I made an assumption, but I became the first three letters because you never make an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be like, Islam hate women, like they oppress women or whatever. I click on the video, and to my shock, he says Islam is the answer to all the West's problems. Non-Muslim lives a very non-Muslim life.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, I mean, that's this is what like Malcolm X said that right about the race problem after he went to Mecca and did the Hajj and said if what I've seen there in terms of the culture of brotherhood, this is the solution to America's race problem. That's what Malcolm Allah yarhamu said. And we've talked about this before, right? There's so much in our religion that if applied today could solve so many of the societal issues that we see in this country. Something that recently comes up to mind, I think we talked about this, is the whole Me Too thing, the whole Me Too movement. The way that a lot of the financial institutions in New York and in other financial hubs around the country, that's right, the way that they solved it was what they say. A lot of these banks started putting new rules on themselves. So no man and woman can travel together in any business travel. And if they are, then they're going to take different flights. And if they're staying in a hotel, then they're staying on different floors. And if a man and a woman are going to have a meeting together, then the door can't be closed. They even took it further than what most scholars in Islam would say is appropriate. And it's funny because it's like, yeah, we said that. We said that 1,000 years ago, and you guys called us extreme, and you guys called us backwards, and now after all the problems, then you come back and try to apply, not knowing out of ignorance that this is what Islam has been teaching for years. So yeah, I mean, alhamdulillah, it works. I feel like as a really good method for youth, especially the youth who live here, who oftentimes still see our religion as something that is not, it needs to make its way, it needs to catch up to the 21st century to see that no, Islam has had the solutions that could be applied today and could solve a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. So,
I think one big problem is, and for me growing up too, I have to learn how to break down. I feel like these post-colonial words with certain connotations, especially like the word modern. Like every time you think modern, like all my life, modern, oh, it's good, it's great, it's like advanced, it's good. And every time you think about religion, you don't think it's modern because they always use those two words in opposite of each other. Mm-hmm. So it's these things that slowly, condition you to see it in a negative light. And until like you learn, like, wait a minute, as I get older, I guess, because I'm still relatively young, I'm 20, but as I get older, I see religion and I learn more about religion. I realize like Islam, it's actually the most middle path. It's the one that's most moderate. Because you think this is all freedom, like growing up here, you think this is all like nice, being able to do whatever you want, wherever you want, drink, smoke, whatever. But as you get older, you realize like it's not free. It's like enslavement. It's like an extreme to one side, and the anti-religious people are extreme to another. But
and that's why what you notice is that the older a person gets in America, the more conservative they tend to become. And so what you find, this is Kevin O'Leary said this, the multi-millionaire guy on Shark Tanks. He said, he was talking about when Trump was elected and his daughter was there and she was crying, right? And he was telling her, don't worry, it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome. Now, from his perspective, he made business easy, right? Mm-hmm. Trump made business easy. He made a lot of money. So the economy's so good and whatnot. But one of the things he mentioned, I think, that he has a point here, is that when kids are young, they don't have these responsibilities. They're not getting a paycheck. They don't see how much taxes are being taken out of their paychecks. They're liberal, they're socialists, and they accept these things. But when you get older and now you have a family and you're raising kids and whatnot, you tend to lean more towards the conservative side to try and maintain that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of value there. And so we really need to be mature in the way we approach issues. Right? It's never black and white, ever. I mean, this whole notion of modern, there's an entire field of study dedicated to that with some major scholars, major Western scholars who have written books like this thick, multiple books this thick, just trying to understand what happened. And no matter how much you dig deep in it, they always say it's more complex than this, but this is just a facet of what's going on. So the whole term modern, I do think that it's presented in a way where this is modern, this is the way forward, and this is what's right, and anything that's not like that, or it's not part of the modern movement, is automatically an old-fashioned. You gotta leave it behind. And there's a lot to say there, but one thing I'll point to real quickly is that the history of the West is very different than the history of Islam. The history of the West is a history that is dark. They have the Dark Ages. We never had the Dark Ages. If there is a Dark Age, this is it for the Muslim world. But it's nowhere near as bad as the Dark Ages of the Western world. I mean, you have poems of a mother singing to her child, just die. You're better off dead. Right? I mean, there are some pretty serious problems in the Muslim world, like in Syria and Yemen and other places, right? But overall, I don't think it's as bad as what Europe went through. And so what you find is the Western world now, they have this phobia of the past. We cannot go back to that. We will do everything not to go back to that because it's a dark age. And so they always see this progressive mindset. We need to go further and further distant away from it. Whereas we Muslims, what do we try to do? Look at our golden age. Look at our past. Look at the righteous predecessors. We always view the past as being better and the people of the past better than now. And this kind of collides and creates confusion. All right, and there's a lot to say there, but I won't take it too far of a tangent, but it's important. It's a good distinction.
Continue on to the topic. So as I was watching the video, he also made one. At first I was confused. How can a non-Muslim see this so much, especially one that doesn't really study Islam? He just sees what he sees and he observes. Is because he said he traveled 72 countries. He was a 4-time kickboxing world champion, and he when he used to live in Britain, he lived in a very Muslim area. So he'd see all the problems. You just see with his own eyes all the problems that the non-Muslims had. Muslims didn't have. Muslims were happy in their marriage. Muslims were just happy with their life in general. And one interesting point he made is what me and Sheikh talked about yesterday, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. He talked about the degradation of the family unit, the nuclear family in America, or just the West in general, but especially in America. He talked about how it really matters because it really messes up people. It really messes up their psychology growing up with a single parent home or this or that issue or alcoholism, whatever. And he was saying that, and he put it in a way that I feel really helped. Especially me, I grew up in the West a little bit, so young people here. He said society is built off of families, because in reality, it's a family makes a house, a couple homes, couple families make a street, a few streets make a village, and then a town, and then a city, and then a country. Right. So it's if you destroy the family, you destroy basically the country or how the people are. And you recently, I guess relatively speaking, recently, you have a child. You've been a parent for about 2 years or so. So I want to get your opinion on once you became a parent, do you see these family values and are they a lot more? Oh, I understand it now. Are they a lot more? Yeah, now I know why my parents did that. Or
yeah, I mean, and it was something that I'd always felt because, alhamdulillah, growing up, I was very close with my family and even with our extended family, even the ones who lived overseas. We made an effort to keep in touch with them, and we'd go every summer and see them. Now with WhatsApp and everything, it's so much easier. I can be texting my cousin, anytime who lives in Egypt. But yeah, here's the thing. So I remember being in the UK, and I remember seeing this ad on TV that was I think it was government sponsored, but it said something it was just this kid who goes home and then goes into his bedroom, and then the daughter comes home, she goes into her bedroom, and the father comes home and he goes into the office, the mom comes home, she goes to her room, and then dinner time, and no one's there except the young sibling who's eating alone. And at the end the ad says, have dinner with your family. And I was thinking what? I mean, of course I have dinner with my family. Is this something that the government needs to really push on people? But the fact is, Western culture is I'll have dinner in my room, and you can. The fact that we live together doesn't mean that we live in the same house. Doesn't mean we have to live together. It doesn't mean we have to interact. And that's something that I felt Islamic culture is very. It's something else that we can offer to Western society is the close knit family and how we work a lot with the youth. right? You could almost take every problem back, especially with youth, with people who are in this age. You can trace every problem back to a bad relationship with their parents, or or just not being close with their family. And all of the people who are doing really well in school, and the youth who are really, succeeding and really, great personalities and outgoing and are working hard, have parents who are supportive. So it's a big part of it is on the parents, but it's and especially now being a father. Now I know what they mean when they say, like, it takes a village to raise a child. It's so true. It was never like this. Historically speaking, it was never mom and dad raised the kid. It was always we're living with our, I don't want to call it a tribe, but whatever it is, we're living in our village with the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents who are all living around the same area. And so when the mom is tired, or when the dad is busy with something, or he's tired, she'll go stay with her aunt for a little bit. She'll go stay with her uncle for a little bit. And then it also helps the child you're learning from a lot of different adults in your life. You're gaining from all of their wisdom and all their experiences aside to instead of just your parents. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely feeling it now. It's good because I also happen to have, my immediate family at least is here, so it's helpful. Mm-hmm. But it definitely gives me a new perspective on that.
That's all those little new parents out there. Any tips? Because you said now you're up to the terrible twos.
Oh, man.
And Sheikh Tarak was saying
the undisclosed terrible threes.
Right.
You never hear about that.
Yeah, look, Parenthood also gets a very bad rap, and I remember when I first got married, seeing people who were having their kids, and I'm like, hey, any advice, and they were always like, wait. Be married as long as you can. Just wait. Don't have kids. Or hold off for as long as possible.
Just enjoy your time.
You know what? Alhamdulillah, past 2 years have been some of the happiest of my life. She's brought me more joy and more good experiences and more laughs. And they always say this. They always say, like, you will not know love until you actually have a child. And there was a stand-up comic who was talking about this. It was like, I look at my daughter and I'm like, you are literally my flesh and blood. Like, you are a piece of me. And then I look at my wife and I'm like, who the heck are you? Like, we're not even related, So it's such a different perspective. Like, when you see her laugh and then you can see your wife's laugh on her, in her, or you see her give you this look and you're like, that's me in there. Like, that's me. It's amazing. I can't explain it. Are there nights where I'm just like, can you please stop acting like this? Or just put your sandals on so we can go? Yeah, of course. But talking about speakers who maybe I'd like to go out of my way to listen to speakers and thinkers and intellectuals who I don't necessarily agree with a lot. One of those is a conservative professor from Toronto who said about children that people tend to always, especially our generation, we like to skip to see the fruit of our labor, and children are one of those investments where it really could take longer than a decade to see those fruits. But the fact that you're not seeing it right away, it doesn't mean it's not happening. So you invest in the kid, and also, like, our society, our society doesn't pay you. I mean, there's no society that pays you to take care of a kid. So people see it as like, this mom doesn't have a real job. She's just a mom. This woman doesn't have a job. No. This is the most important job anyone can have, is raising a child. The fact that you're not making any money off of it doesn't make it any less valuable. Mm-hmm. It's tough, but anything that's tough or anything that's worth it will have its challenges. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. I mean, it's been amazing, alhamdulillah. So I don't know. You have a boy, a little bit different of an experience.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing, apparently, I guess. All that you said, I've thought of the same thing. Can you just put your sandals on? Can you make it a little bit easier for us? Yeah, you always have that. But look, he's my best buddy, to be honest. And I'm his best buddy. And we do a lot together, and we have a lot of fun together. Right? And alhamdulillah.
Yeah. I know my mom, back when the boys and girls, like, which one's worse or better, my mom, she would always, I don't know if it was my sister that was, like, especially troublesome when she was younger, but she would, like, what's it called, pray you have boys. Like, boys are so much easier to raise. You just give them a stick and they're...
Well, I guess it's not an issue of gender.
It's
an issue of the parent.
Right.
Whenever my baby goes all out and starts going crazy, my wife looks at me and is like, it's you. It's your genes. It's your genes. Because I was really rowdy when I was young, I guess there are horror stories of me doing things like.
I gotta hear these stories, man.
Another time, I will give for another time.
You can't give us one?
Fine. One time, I somehow got out of the house when I was maybe 2 years old, and I crawled my way to the kindercare, the daycare behind our house.
It was next to your house?
It's right behind us.
Okay.
Right? I somehow made my way there. I crawled there or whatever, and there's a fence around the daycare. I guess there was like a hole under part of the fence, so I went under it, and I started playing with the kids, and my mom couldn't find me. Called the police. They were looking for me for like 2 hours. When they found me in the playground behind the house.
Checking out my friends.
Yeah.
Like the teacher was like, wait a minute, we have one extra. Who's this? Nobody saw a baby just walking down the street.
So that's one of the things. Yeah, but alhamdulillah, Omar he's more responsible, and I've never seen him do something reckless. Mm-hmm. He does things that require an amount of courage, right? If he sees something he thinks he can jump off of, he will jump off of it, but he will assess it first. I don't think I did that, right? I would jump off a flight of stairs and not think twice. So he's a little bit calmer. He's not calmer. He has maybe equal energy, but I guess he's smarter. Like he gets it from my wife, whatever.
Yep. Ron, what's the worst thing you did as a kid?
Worst thing?
This guy was in Afghanistan when he was a kid. You know that?
I don't know.
Oh boy!
It was never malicious. It was never malicious.
Okay.
I have some fun stories, but I think like the most malicious thing I ever did is one time there was a pile of beans in our compound. Mm-hmm. Me and my cousins, me and my two cousins were walking around the same age, so we're like best friends. We always hang out. Pile of beans, just out of nowhere. At the time, I didn't know somebody left them for sun drying. Mm-hmm. So my first thought was, sell it, make money. Okay. So immediately we start grabbing some beans, and we walked to the local market, and obviously the guy took complete advantage of me. Like he picked up one bad bean out of the whole bunch. Like, what's this? This is so terrible. You're lucky if I give you money. So he got me begging for money, and then he gave me like 3 rupees, which is like 3 cents. And when we bought 2 pieces of candy and a lighter, and we started lighting stuff on.
Look at the lighter. You know, I don't know if you've had summers in Egypt. Mm-hmm. I've had summers in Palestine, and the lighter is important, man. As a kid, you always have a lighter.
You can have a lot of fun with a lighter.
You can burn things. You can burn tissues. You can burn firecrackers. You can buy at the local, the corner convenience store. You had to have a lighter.
Got a bunch of pyromaniacs here.
Hey, it teaches you fire safety. We respect fire now.
It teaches you something about fire. It's not safety, I'll tell you that. Not the way we were playing with it.
How was Egypt when you were younger?
Well, when I lived in Egypt, I was in high school, so I was stupid, but not that. I was already past that like crazy age. Like I knew what could kill me. You know, okay. I'm talking about the age before that. Let's see, what's the dumbest thing I did? The list is long. I don't know how much time. No, there was one time I was in Michigan and we went to the mall. And you guys remember those FAO Schwartz stores? It was this big store that just had a bunch of like teddy bears and like toys and stuff like that. So I went with a friend of mine, and we were just messing around. He threw a teddy bear at me, and I threw something back. And within 3 minutes, it was just a major like battle. We caused 2 little guys like in 6th grade. We caused so much havoc, like just such a mess. And this manager comes and he's like, I'm going to have to ask you guys to leave, please. So, okay, we leave. But then we're like, we just got kicked out of a store. Like, this is kind of fun. How many stores could we get kicked out of today? So we go to like a Lazy Boy, and there's this girl who's, she's sitting on one of those massaging chairs. Mm-hmm. And we're standing, we're like, our turn is next. This is back when massaging chairs were like a big new thing. And so she would not get up. And she sees us like sitting there waiting for her politely. So my friend goes behind and he unplugs it. And she's like, oh, it must be broken. She gets up and walks away. We plug it back in. Another manager sees us. He's like, guys, that was hilarious, but get out. So
you finally got her out of the store. Yeah. Thank you. We got to go.
Yeah, we ended up just getting kicked out. I think it was like 5 or 6 stores that day. So that was my record. I think that was a good day for me. But yeah. Nothing, I don't remember, I didn't like cause any huge damage or anything like that. I didn't wreck anything. That was more my brother. He was the guy that like he flooded our middle school actually.
Really?
Yeah. They had built this new science lab. Built a brand new science lab, and they had these like lever that you would pull in case you get any chemicals in your eyes. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to stand under it. And it's a shower that just kind of like cleans out your eyes. He sneaks in there with his friend. before they had ever used the lab. Like, it was brand new. They hadn't even opened it up to the students yet. And he just sees this lever, and naturally, he pulls it, and then it just starts like raining water down, so they run out and close the door. And then maybe 2 periods later, we just see water seeping out from under the door. A teacher catches it, and they open, and everything is ruined. My parents came in, and this is where you see my dad and like the Arab coming out of him, because the principal's like, I'm going to sue your son and this and that, and my dad says, my son was going to drown. I'm going to sue you for putting my son in danger. I don't know where this is going, by the way. I don't know if this is...
How do they know it was him?
Oh, they had cameras. They had cameras on the hallway that saw both of them run out.
That's so American, man. That's American.
But yeah, candidly, that door should have been locked, right? If it's a brand new lab and it has all this expensive...
And chemicals in there that could be the
right. I'm not justifying what he did, obviously, but I'm just saying.
I mean, he's a kid. You know what happens.
He's a kid.
Can't sue a kid for being a kid.
Yeah.
You can't expect it.
Anyway. But yeah, so I forgot what the question was.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But how, since you said you spent time in Egypt when you were in high school, so you got to see how high school was there and all that. And then when did you come to America? And like,
I was in Egypt from 2001 to 2004-ish. Yeah.
Oh, so just high school years.
Yeah.
So you came here and went to college.
Yeah, I had my senior year in high school here and then went to college.
So what's the biggest difference, so at least from their high school to high school here and then just the youth?
Yeah, I mean, and I wasn't living in... Wait, why are you smiling? I want to hear this.
I think it's so many funny stories.
Yeah?
The biggest difference is that people don't come in randomly to sell you tea.
While you're in class. Here's the thing. So I went to a private American school in Egypt. So I wasn't living in Egypt. I was living in the Egypt that tourists lived in. I went out of my way to get out of that city in Cairo and go to like see the real country.
So like a story where like the rich like royal family kid just runs with the street slums.
Yeah, that was me. That's you. No. Yeah, and so I went to school with I would say like the 1% of Egypt. Because it was it was a private American school. We had like the IB program, the British program, which is very different than American schools. But those kind of like the people who I went to school with were generally not very definitely not practicing when it comes to religion. And not really very Egyptian. Again, we're talking about the 1% of the Middle East. So I was kind of an outlier there when I first came. I mean, I made some good friends, but I remember I told you this story where there was a little section in the school, like in the campus, where we would pray. And when I say we, I mean my brother, myself, and all the janitors who worked at the school. None of the students. Even though the students, the vast majority of them were Muslim. And they'd hear the adhan. I mean, we're in Egypt, right? Like you could hear it. You could hear all the mosques around you in the adhan, but none of them prayed. I was walking with a friend of mine one afternoon between classes, and we heard the adhan for Asr, and I started to walk there, and I'm like, he goes, "Where are you going?" This is like the corner that I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go pray," and he goes, "No, don't worry about it. Just that simple. Just forget about it." And I did. I kind of said, "Okay, well, I guess we just won't." And I think that was the first time I ever like consciously skipped a prayer because I didn't want to look like, a weirdo in front of this guy. So thinking back now, I mean, obviously I regret that decision, but more importantly, it really emphasizes the importance of friendship. In middle school, in high school, and in college, you're shaping the person you're going to be. And that's why I think these events with youth groups and the masjid being a place for the youth to feel comfortable and to make friends is so important. I think the feeling of belonging to a group who are all kind of like in the same place in their life and we generally believe the same things, it's so important. I don't think we can overemphasize that. Again, I liked living there, but I actually found that I was closer to Allah. I was closer in my religion when I lived here than in a Muslim country. Funny enough,
I had a similar thing. At least when I was overseas, I was too young. But when I was in New York, I was old enough to like think about religion, think about if I want to practice. And New York, alhamdulillah, has like a strong Muslim culture.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I really didn't like it. And now I'm so glad I moved here, or I was my family moved here. But at the time, religion was like, it wasn't that I didn't like religion, I didn't like Islam, but it was more that I don't like the culture around it. I don't like people at the mosque. I don't like the way they were, how judgmental they were, all whatever. And I came here, and here, you go to Spectrum on a Saturday night, forget about it. Like your eyes will be basically like bleeding after how, like here it's so much more available. There's so much. It's like no Islamic culture here.
Yeah.
And even when I was in school, I see here Muslim name when I was new here, and I'm like, oh, you're a Muslim, trying to make new friends. And then mainly Iranis, sorry, but like, what's it called? It wouldn't just like, oh no, I'm not Muslim. They would like be shocked, and they would distance themselves, like, oh no, it's almost something disgusting. But for some reason, like with you here, I found my religion become a lot stronger. Like I really care about religion here. Not that I didn't care there, but like I actually started to really care here.
I think it's because people like this man over here who kind of create an environment where, honestly, I mean, again, you're in that age where you want everything to, you're in an age where you need validation from your friends. And so if you have friends who are cool, who also happen to be practicing religion, then suddenly practicing religion becomes cool. If you're in a group who all want to smoke up every weekend, then that's what's cool. So it's finding the right group of people. And it's funny because you say when you moved to SoCal it changed for you. I know people who grew up in SoCal who went a very different path and who might have moved to New York and found that group. It's all about your own social circles and who you kind of interact with and who you meet, which is, again, going back to that friendship. Your friend, I say this to the youth all the time. I can know who a person is without ever meeting them if I meet their 5 best friends. I can tell you a lot about who this person is if you meet their 5 best friends. Because generally, and if people say like, oh, listen, the people I hang out with, they do this and that, but I don't let that affect me, you're kidding yourself. I don't believe that for a second, especially not in this age. Especially not in this age. We get influenced by the people around us. Even adults do. And certainly youth do.
It's a fact.
So, yeah.
I remember hearing a story from one of my friends. He's a lot better, but back then he was a little less I won't say religious, but he wasn't as careful because he thought the same as you did. Oh, I don't need to hang out. Like, if I'm not doing it, like I'm not doing it. What's the point? I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna smoke. Whatever. Long story short, but the reason why it matters is because they don't care. Is it because one time they gave him chocolate and he's like, oh, chocolate, nice, kind of him. Ate the chocolate, but it wasn't a regular chocolate. It was like it's not like a weed brand. What do you call it? Like a weed chocolate? But it had THC in it. It had a lot of THC in it.
You know anything about this?
I've heard people in college talking about like a brownie with
I've heard like hot brownies or something. Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. So, but it had like a lot of THC in it.
Yeah.
So he ate it, and then all of a sudden he started freaking out, like, "Oh my god, what is this?" And his friends were like, "Oh my bad, I forgot you're Muslim. Whatever. It's
forgot
okay."
To mention.
Yeah, it'll wear off in a few hours. It's also, I
gosh.
feel like in this stage, especially about that, it's like, obviously you're Muslim not Muslim that care and like will respect it, but
right.
For majority of the time, what I see is because they don't understand, because we live in a very non-religious, I guess, non-religious area. It's that they won't even they what's important to you is not important to them. So what you really care about?
It's not just that they don't even consider it.
Yeah,
like it just does. It's not something they think about.
So even if you, like as you were saying, whoever's watching, even if you were thinking, oh, I don't do it, well, accidentally it will lead to that.
Right.
Like, oh, I have so fun. You're right. It always has an effect, no matter what.
Like they don't think. Let's make clear what I mean. When it comes to, for example, gender relations, the possibilities there, gender relations are so standard here that they're not going to think, okay, what does this person believe in this regard? Hey, do I need to consider this? They actually need to be informed first that, hey, we kind of have these boundaries and whatnot, and then they will say, oh, okay, then I didn't know that, and they'll start considering it. That's what happens a lot in interfaith circles, especially newer people. They kind of need to get a rundown of, okay, these are Muslims, these are kind of our no-nos.
Don't shake.
And we get that a lot in Open Mosque Day, right? A lot of people, very well-meaning people, who want to build a healthy society, to do away with racism, with xenophobia, and all this stuff. And they just ask, so what if I were to interact with a Muslim? Just what are some 3 tips? 3 no-nos, and whatnot. So I point to pork and alcohol, and then gender relations. These 3 things very quickly. So yeah, it's a very, very different paradigm.
those misunderstandings can sometimes go in a very interesting way. I remember, what year was this? It was after, I think it was during some kind of conflict in the Middle East. I mean, any time in the past 100 years, I guess you could say. But this happened a few years ago, and I was at the masjid in Michigan that I'd go to. There was a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric going on in the news for a few weeks, and we had.
Does it have anything to do with Trump?
No. This was actually before him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Fox News. Then.
I think this was Bush era, Bush Jr. And someone left a big piece of ham right in front of the mosque in Egypt. I think it was like
in Egypt.
No, sorry, in Michigan. I'm sorry, in Michigan.
He died.
Well, it was funny because I think that they thought that we worship pigs or something. So it's like, I just slaughtered your god or something and left him at the door, and we're like, okay, well, that's just a waste of food, I guess. We'll throw it away. But it's funny because the people with the most hate also happen to be the people with the most ignorance. He thought he was offending us with this, and it was more like, all right, someone just throw it away. We're not going to eat it, obviously, and but it's just you reminded me of the whole pork thing. It's we don't eat pork, but not because we think of it as something holy. I remember someone at work once asking me when they found out that I was Muslim, and I think I was fasting during Ramadan, and she goes, "I want to ask you a question. I don't want to offend you. Please tell me if it's you don't have to answer. Completely understand." And I'm thinking like, all right, what's this going to be? And she goes, "What do Muslims feel about cows?" I said, we feel that they're delicious. Yeah,
they for good steak.
Not much I can say there. Just had some really good burgers today, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what you put in those burgers, man.
I love.
For the first time,
I love.
I'm not a napper at all. I do not nap. I took a nap when I got home. I mean, I knocked out for a good 2 hours. That was great. Thank you again for that.
Do it again,
Just to, I guess, pivot the conversation to a new topic. You work in corporate America.
Yes.
A lot of youth want to have the MBAs or want to go into business.
Yeah.
Advice, suggestions for going into that field and try to succeed in that field? Because I know you do pretty well, alhamdulillah. I guess you seem like you did, but all your Coke stories.
Hold on.
Wait, no, that sounds wrong. I mean, Coca-Cola.
Oh my God.
Coca-Cola. Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's Pepsi. That's where I used to work. Yeah, no, alhamdulillah. I mean, let's see, general advice. I'm reading this really great book. I think I told you about it, Sheikh Saleh. It's called AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee. And he talks about artificial intelligence and kind of the next wave in technology. He's talking about by 2030, there's going to be like $16 trillion of GDP that's going to be produced via artificial intelligence.
Globally?
Is that America's GDP right now?
No, America's GDP is about $2 trillion.
So I'm off.
He said 7 of that will go to China, and about 4 of that will go to the U.S. because China's actually gotten a big head start on implementing artificial intelligence. So when we talk about, hey, what do you want to study in school? This is going to be the next 15 to 20 years of jobs. And I think about this, like our kids, most likely the jobs they're going to have, we don't even know what they are yet. Like they probably don't even exist yet. Just like 30 years ago, no one knew what Amazon or Google or Uber or PayPal were, I think this is kind of going to be the next wave. And I think it's important for us to really, be aware of that and to invest in it. I know that the whole doctor, lawyer, engineer thing is still very much embedded in our culture. Like those are the only 3 jobs, and anything other than that, I will never.
Failure. Right,
exactly. Like you can't marry my daughter, kind of thing. We need to get past that a little bit. We need to, but yeah. I mean, I've also, I've been working now for almost 11 years, and I found that personality goes a long way. Just being the kind of networking goes a long way. I've gotten a ton of jobs or job offers from people just because I know someone who knows someone, or because even when I hire on my teams, there are sometimes people who are more qualified, but you think like, hey, we spend more time with people at work than oftentimes we do with our families, right? So you want to be with people who are pleasant. You want to be with people who are nice to be around. And so we have not hired someone and hired someone else who might be a little bit less qualified, because it's like you can train them, but you can't train someone to be a good coworker. You can't train someone to be pleasant to be around. So that goes a long way when you're, interviewing and when you're networking and, kind of reaching out to people for job opportunities. Obviously having internship experience helps a lot when they're looking for that first job out of college. I think Elon Musk talks about the MBAization of America, where companies have focused so much on people with the MBA background, which you're looking at like big data, you're looking at statistics, you're looking at financials, and have kind of steered a little bit away from entrepreneurship. Whereas this new generation, we were just talking about this, like during COVID, how many people locked down at home young people started new businesses, started some kind of food catering business, or started some kind of online business. This generation is really thinking a lot about what they want to do with their lives, and they don't want to be, what they call a corporate drone. They don't want to be a zombie sitting in a cubicle for the rest of their lives, making someone else money. Actually, right now, what companies are dealing with, they're calling the Great Resignation. There were more people that resigned in May of this year than ever before, since they started doing these stats 20 years ago. Most of them are like low income. Most of them, you'd say, like fast food workers or like blue collar, but it's also getting into white collar as well, because people are realizing, like, my life is worth more than $10 an hour. I'd rather find something else. And I think being at home for a year and being on lockdown and seeing loved ones, who are sick or losing people in our lives, and it just gave everyone a new perspective on work and on what it means to have a work-life balance. And a lot of companies right now are struggling with people don't want to come back to the office 5 days a week if they don't need to, So it's great to work hard, obviously, get the best opportunities, but there is, I would say, especially in this country, an unhealthy work-life balance. There is an unhealthy attitude toward what it means to be a good employee. I mean, in no other country will you see people emailing on their vacation. When I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. Here, you're on vacation, you're expected. If there's an emergency and we need you, no such thing as a vacation. Like, no. You're still working here. So,
yeah. In my recent vacation, I had to resist the urge. I'd only check my email to see if there's anything urgent. Sometimes you get cases of like abuse and whatnot, and this needs to be addressed ASAP. But anything other than that, I'm not going to answer any emails, any messages and whatnot. I even stopped checking unless there's something urgent. That was nice. Man, I've been waiting 2 years for a vacation.
Yeah.
Couldn't go last year because of COVID. I want a vacation. I'm coming here to reset my mind.
Yeah.
So that when I come back, I'm ready. Alhamdulillah, I think it worked because I was ready to come back when I came back.
Work-life balance, isn't it in Europe, like, the amount of weeks of vacation you get significantly higher, significantly more pay, significantly less hours worked?
Right.
Why is there such a big difference? As somebody that works in that field, why is there such a big difference from Europe, which is supposed to be like,
that's a great question.
Enlightened and West and everything?
Yeah. The documentary filmmaker Michael Moore, who he's from Michigan, so I like it. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he makes some really good points. One of his latest documentaries was about that. It was called "Who Do We Invade Next?" And it was talking about how, what country can America invade so that we can steal their good ideas. And I think he went to Spain. He went to Italy, he went to Germany, he went to Tunisia, and each one of these had something that we in this country could learn from. He went to France and he looked at school lunches, for example. In France, they don't just give you a blob of whatever the heck it is on your plate and then send you off to the cafeteria.
A blob of GMO.
Is there a rat in the back making it for you?
They actually spend time to teach them the etiquette of mealtime. So they'll have their utensils, and there's a teacher who's sitting at each table and showing them this is how you eat, and this is how you cut, and this. And then he showed them pictures of American school meals, and the kids were, that's gross, that's disgusting. He shows them even like a can of Coke. They didn't even recognize it. They don't allow them to drink Coke in schools there. It's, no, we're gonna have water. We're gonna have maybe some fresh juice. Anyway, that was France. When he went to Spain, he went to Italy. He looked at their work-life balance. And people, like you said, I mean, they get something. It's like between 8 and 10 weeks of vacation every year.
For us, it's like wow.
Right. Yeah. So, and they're expected to go home in the middle of the day, spend an hour having lunch with their families, and then go back to work. And the crazy part is they're no less efficient than we are here, You're talking about very profitable companies. So there's been this culture of anti-union and just kind of forcing everything is top line. Everything is about the profits for the shareholders, which has made this country very, very rich, but has made the people, the employees, very unhappy. So when you look at levels of happiness around the world, we're not anywhere close to number one anymore. And it's interesting because it's like the richest country in the world, you would think its people are the happiest. And you very quickly come to realize, you know, it's cliche, but money does not bring happiness, right? You know, it's not, you can see it very clearly.
Plus, most of the country doesn't have, isn't like...
Plus, all that money is not exactly being, you know, trickling down to the people either. Yeah.
I remember in my AP US history class, back in junior year, teacher said something along the lines of like 68 or 72 or 73% of Americans, if they had, somewhere along that, if they had $1,000 expense, like emergency medical bill, they had to pay, they can't afford it.
So that stat has changed recently, and it went down to $300. They cannot. Most Americans cannot afford a $300 emergency, which is, again, talking about the richest country in the world. You have to wonder where all that money is going, and it's kind of a sad state of affairs when that's the case. So yeah. On that note.
Well, I guess you guys have a place to be. You got to go home to have dinner with family. Sheikh's busy.
No, hey, this is awesome, man. I love this, and this is such a cool. You know, I like the setup.
Thank you.
The mic and everything.
Before we end,
yes.
Look, we're in summer break now. Here at OCIF, you know, alhamdulillah. After, by the way, you know, you kind of mentioned, and you can tap my back. Creating this youth group, it wasn't me really. It was actually someone else's idea. Someone who I'm very thankful for, who imported something he has done in Chicago and brought it here, and we had an entire team. Right, I was clueless back then, and the team that I had were all more experienced than I was. So that's what it really is. But alhamdulillah, after three or 4 years of doing this, now that original group of youth have become leaders of the youth group, and they have formed the youth committee. Now they're doing it. So you know, we're very proud of them, and I'm really looking forward to this upcoming year and how that's going to happen. But in your experience, Omar, where are things going in terms of the issues, the needs of the youth? If you can point to maybe 1-2 things, what do the youth need? And so if a young man or lady is watching this video, what should they be working on really?
That's a great question. I think so. I was talking with one of. Sorry, I'll come a little bit closer. I was talking with one of these youth leaders just a couple of days ago, and I was telling him something that I've noticed over the years working with the youth is that very rarely will a youth remember something that you've said. So it's not, you know, we can, like I said, we've been doing this for 3-4 years now. I don't think that I'm not going to say any of them, but most people will not be able to quote a specific lesson that they learned from, you know, something that we talked about a couple years ago. But they will remember how they feel. They'll remember how you made them feel. So again, going back to that sense of belonging, I think what they need more than anything is good friends. And this is the perfect place to kind of make good friends, make good relationships, and just kind of be together and go through that experience together of being a young Muslim American growing up. Something else that I feel is really important is building a relationship. So we always talked about this when I was growing up, is when you're born Muslim, there's a time in your life where you convert to Islam. There's a time in your life where you start believing what you believe because you truly believe it, not because your mom and dad just happen to have raised you as a Muslim. And that usually happens around high school, college, when you start to think independently and you start to kind of be a little bit more reflective on who you want to be for the rest of your life. These are really formative years. And so people need to take that seriously. And I feel like maybe a lot of people waste their high school years thinking like they don't need to take anything in their lives seriously, not realizing that they are shaping the person they're going to become. So start taking an active approach to who you want to be. Start realizing that once you go to college and you're not attached to the home anymore necessarily with your family, now it's just you. and now the real you is going to come out. And no one's going to be able to change that more than you. No one has more of an effect on the kind of person that you want to be more than you. So, again, historically speaking, people in this age, when you're talking about the teenagers, were getting married and starting to have children. And now people are doing that closer to 25 and into their 30s. So, but the fact is, historically speaking, people in this age were much more mature, were much more serious about who they were and who they want to become. So going back to that mindset, going back historically to that, I think is really important as well. We can talk about specific problems that a lot of the youth are facing, but really that's more of, there are general problems that I feel everyone's facing, but then it kind of comes down to a case by case on how you want to approach it. I don't know, you probably have some insights on that as well.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Not to prove you wrong, but I want to quote you from youth group.
Oh,
I remember one thing you said that stuck with me a lot, and I feel like it also stuck with the youth a lot, because alhamdulillah, you give very good speeches, you give very good lectures, you're very passionate. You said that whoever you are right now is who you will be when you're 20, when you're 21, 22. Whoever you are when you're in your 20s, you'll be in your 30s. Because you're right, you think, when I'm 20, when I'm older, when I'm married, I'll automatically change, because I'm married now, or I'm older now, or I'm in college now. But you're right, if you don't change or do something right now, you'll be the same person in the future. Why would you change?
I think it's very wise of me to say. No, I've heard a lot of guys growing up being like, listen, I'm this way now, but obviously when I get married, I'm going to be different. I'm going to, start respecting, women a lot more. I'm going to start lowering my gaze a lot more when I get married. It's like, no, the habits that you build now are the ones. Don't expect an external factor to change who you are. It's never going to happen. Graduating college is not going to change who you are. Getting married, having kids, whatever it is, you're not going to hit that certain phase in your life that suddenly something externally is going to change who you are on the inside. It's just not going to happen. It has to come from you, and it should come now. So,
very wise of you. And on that note, I guess we'll end. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.